Hey, what is up? This is Alex. Today, I want to show you an example of my track review service. What I have here is a 2.5 minutes long track, which was sent to me by a client who wanted me to review his orchestral track that he composed for a trailer label. So in this review that you're going to see in the second half of this video, I give him advice on especially production and trailer music and how to make this sound more surprising and how to make this track more likely to get trailer placement. So if you write trailer music, this video might be very interesting for you to watch. I'm in the review, but this is just an example of my track review service. If you don't know it, you can go on my website, alexmoukala.com, and ask me for a private track review. Those though are paid, like they're $20 now, because these reviews are me taking your track and recording a video just for you, like usually 20 minutes long, where I give you lots of advice on how to make your track sound great and how to improve your track by a long shot. So that's why they are paid, because I really take it. It's not like feedback where I say, yeah, this sounds great, bro, but it's like feedback 20 minutes long. But you're going to see in this example, it's like 40 minutes back with advice. So you get an idea of what my service is like. And if you want to get it, you just go on alexmoukala.com and that's where you can get the service. All right, in a few seconds, we're going to listen to this track and I'm going to show you the review I made for it. But first, I need to say two things. First thing, I write music by ear. So when I give feedback, I never give feedback on music theory. I will give you feedback on orchestration, production, arrangement, mixing and mastering, and all those things. Writing music by ear, but not music theory. If you need advice on music theory specifically, go check out someone else's website and not mine. Second thing I need to say, if you're a total beginner, rather than submitting a track for review, check out my most popular tutorials. Go check out my most popular 10 tutorials or something, because that is probably what you need. Because if you send me a track for review and it's total beginner stuff, I'm going to give you advice about, things that I talk about on my YouTube for free. So it might be smarter to check out the tutorials first and just send me your track for review once you're a bit more advanced. Anyway, let's get into listening to this track now. So that was the track itself. Now let's shift to the video of the review I made for the track. So I listened to the track already, and I noticed a few problems, like the few big problems with it are the following. So the first big problem I'm noticing is that it's there's lots of copy paste, and each section kind of repeats itself without lots of variations in it, but you really feel it here in the intro and in the climax. The climax, I noticed there's a lot of da 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 da, and that was from the beginning until the end. It was like that. So that was the first problem. The second problem I noticed is that the track sounds loud because it's mixed and mastered properly, and it's also balanced in terms of volume properly. But it doesn't sound as full as it could be. So I'm gonna explain what I mean. But basically, you could have added more sound. So there's lots of there are strings, there are big strings, big percussion, big choir, and piano, which I'm gonna talk about later too. And those kind of fill the track, but you could have added more layers in terms of you could have layered your melodies more to have a fuller sound, make them sound more bold. You could have added some atmospheric elements here and there to really fill in the higher parts of the higher ends of the spectrum. That would have led the track to sound more full and stuff like that. So I'm gonna go through the track now. I'm gonna tell you exactly what I think needs to be improved, as much as I can, tell you. So let's start with the intro. So this first few seconds, which it's like 15 seconds of a drone, that sounds kind of empty because it's just one sound for 15 seconds, one single sound for 15 seconds. That is not likely to leave an impression. And what is not likely to leave an impression is not likely to be used in a trailer. Trailer music is supposed to shock the listener into going to watch the movie. You need to accompany pictures, like images, videos of footages of the movies with some insane music. Now, in the intro, of course, you cannot be insane, because the intro is supposed to be the calm part. So it makes sense that you go quiet here. But to only use one drone for 15 seconds is way too minimal, in my opinion. So, other than having the drone is okay, but I would have added something more. It feels as if you forgot to put something. So stuff you could put in here are like booms, one boom every fourth bar, boom, boom, stuff like that, really deep. Or you could have added what you did here. You added sort of arpeggio with the bass. I would have added that straight away here, and then in this second part, I would have added something else. So a good rule I use personally for composing music of any kind, but especially when I want to be surprising, when I want my track to sound interesting, is I try to add a new element on every repetition, So this is a repetition, for example, because you repeat this entire part. And in this case, yes, you added the arpeggio, which is what I would have done. But I'm saying that, the thing you need to do here is just enrich this part and do not only leave the drone, but add maybe some booms, or you could add some, more piano notes, bum, bum, add a delay on the piano and make a bit of automation on the delay so it goes the left and the right, so it does bum, 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 something like that. I don't know. Or, yeah, but I would just make this part more characterized, add more details, because the drone is the main thing, and that's okay. Adding the main thing is the first thing you need to do, and that's what you did for the whole of the track, but then you didn't add details on top of the thing. And a professional track is a track that has lots of details, because any beginner can get around to adding main elements and writing an arrangement that makes sense. But if you want to make this as a job, you want to get placements and stuff like that, you need to act like a professional, not a beginner. So being able to write an arrangement that makes sense is great. But if you want to get placements, you're going to need to learn how to take care of all the details like all the newbies cannot do. So it's really important that you ask yourself every time, hey, what could I add to this? And trader music supervisors will always tell you, if you send a track like this to a trader music supervisor, he will tell you the track is empty. And that's bad phrasing for them to say the track is empty of details, because this track is not empty. You have a full arrangement here, and the structure makes sense. The harmonies, etc., make sense. The melody is here, the motif is here, but there it isn't detailed enough. So to a trailer supervisor, he might tell you the track sounds empty because it's not full of the details. And when a track is super detailed, you hear it. You hear like it has life into it. You have to listen to the track multiple times over and over to spot all of the sound. And by the 100th listen, you still might not have figured out all the single details. That's how detailed your track needs to be. Now, I'm not saying that you need to like spend 100 hours on it, but it's something that you need to take into account. And I'm just saying this for this part, but actually for the whole of the track, this is true. But in this part, this is the most critical part where I've really noticed that. And I thought maybe it will get better, but I noticed that the details didn't really, start to add up to something, immense and super interesting. So definitely add something else here. Add a delay on the piano, add trailer booms, add, other sounds, maybe a higher drone, because here you have this low drone, and you see the high frequencies are empty. And here, maybe in the second repetition, you can add a high drone, like a reverberated guitar, like something like that, I don't know. But try to really fill this part with details. Use this as a foundation and build upon it. And in this part, for example, you only added this, and this after a while it gets old, right? So even here, that's not enough. I would have added something else too. And the riser here, though, is kind of cool. Though you could have done it, like you could have made it even louder, because in terms of hierarchy of volume of sound, in a trailer song, what you have is, trailer hits, risers and reverse, and trailer whoosh bangs. Those trailer effects should be the loudest in the song. The orchestration and the drones and stuff like that, the synths should be in the second place. Sorry. In my mind, for what I heard, trailer effects should be the first place. Percussion in the second place. Third place should be like the orchestra and all those sounds. And fourth, the atmospheric elements if you want. But generally speaking, the trailer effects should, no matter what types of trailer music you're writing, the trailer effects should be the loudest. So riser here should be way more loud, and this too. This is very weak. Something like would have been much better, something like, I don't know, a very powerful whoosh bang, like let's see if I have one as an example. I'm just gonna use a random one. If it can load. No, not this one. Something more bold like that would work. So yeah, I would definitely add, like, layer this to sound bigger, add a whoosh bang or something, so that it does, and you really, really feel it. Because that's very important for trailer music. Those sounds are gonna be what the sync points between your track and the videos. So there are like the fundamental bridge between video and music, So in trailer music, you need to make sure that the trailer elements, which are the most important ones to really create that impact, are the loudest and the most noticeable. It's almost as if you need to have trailer impacts and trailer effects with background music underneath them. It's not like music with background trailer hits. It's the opposite, almost. They really need to be loud and noticeable. So definitely increase the volume of this riser and layer this hit here to make it way more impressive. Another thing you could have done here is add a downer, like those sort of sounds, like this guy. Or this might be a better example. Yeah, something like that. Add them here would be great. Let's move on. So yeah, I would fix many things here. Just add lots of details. Now here, you have this hit, but the piano and orchestra that comes after really makes it dissipate and fade away. It's like when we hear the piano, the hit is so weak you don't hear it anymore. That should be the opposite. Like the hit should be like super loud, that we really like, you really feel it, and the piano is beneath it. Now, as for this piano, actually, I would remove it entirely. Because I'm not talking about the high note. The high note is okay, it sounds thin, but I noticed that in orchestration, when you put a piano like this, very low piano chord, or like mid octave, low octave, stuff like that. Along with the rest of with an orchestration, it makes it sound a bit weaker. You know, it creates a strange sense of power, like because the piano kind of it's a soft instrument and stuff like that. So when you play piano, you create a soft atmosphere. But if you play it along with with this sort of Brahmish brass and open, orchestration, and you have that sort of Brahmish brass, etc., is gonna make the orchestration open up and sound loud, right? So it's as if you're doing something that is both cold and warm at the same time. So it kind of like the contrast between the two makes the overall sound come together into a happy medium. But in this case, it's an unhappy medium because you need the loudness, you need the openness. So if you add the piano, which makes it sound a bit closer, but a bit more intimate, you're going to reduce the degree of openness and epicness of the overall sound. And that's not very good for trailer music. I'm not saying that's bad, because in some arrangements, that's what you want. But in trailer music, you want epicness, you want loudness. So using piano like this and decreasing the power of your orchestration is not very good. In this case, like in the intro, you could have used it because the intros need to be intimate and stuff. So using a low piano chord here would have, worked well, I guess, maybe. But in here, I would remove the piano here and just leave the brass. But you would like the chord the piano is playing is actually pretty good. So one thing you could do, you could take the dun dun dun, that chord, you could play it on strings, spiccato strings. Which since that articulation is short, etc., it sounds more epic. So something like that. I don't know, do a cool spiccato ostinato pattern and make it sound good. Because spiccatos do need to sound rhythmic, so you need to have syncopated notes and all those things that I explain in my how to write epic staccato strings tutorial. So if you do not watch that one, maybe check it out if you do not know how to write like very enticing spiccato strings. And so I would replace those piano notes with some spiccato, like I would rearrange those notes for spiccato strings, which sound way more epic than piano. So yeah, that's one thing I would do here. And also make the trailer effects way louder. So this is an example of when I say the track sounds could sound fuller. So you see there is a complete void here in the high frequencies. One thing you could do here is to add white noise of those things. Add it, layer it with the trailer hits, so that it comes in and it fades. Like it has in a way that it has the same transient as the trailer hits. So white noise should be the same, like it should, something like that. But you really feel it. Or you could add it, once every so and so bars, or while the rest plays. It's gonna sound stupid on its own, but if you play it with the rest, you're gonna see that it makes the overall track sound way more open, because you go and tackle the high frequencies which are completely empty here, and that's gonna create more sharpness in your track, more openness. So that's one thing that you could do here to add more openness. And one thing you could do, this is a repetition where you left the things as they are. Like I said, bam, 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 bam. You still have the same bram, you still have the same piano, etc., and the same, string sustains, which is like copy paste, like brutal copy paste. What I suggested in the beginning is to add something else to the repetition. So in here, you could have added, maybe a ostinato line. Since we are still talking about trailer music, you need to be impactful, rhythmic. It would make sense to add a string ostinato, maybe something like I don't know, something like that. A bit of a simple melody with some ostinato, and then you have in the end you and then there's that build up that leads to this part. Bam, so it's way more interesting than just leaving things like this, And also you have a riser here, I think. Yeah. You could make the riser start way from way before. Maybe from here to here. or from here to here. Like you should really use your trailer effects in a bold way. You're making statements with trailer effects more so than you're making statements with melody in trailer music. So that's what I would do. So maybe add the or another thing, you know, some tonic melody pattern that can let you lead the track further with more interest, and then increase the volume of the riser and make it start from earlier. And also maybe see if you can remove the piano and replace it with something else. It's not that critical, but it will lead to the track to sound bigger, in my opinion. So yeah. Okay, maybe in this part you could start using this. You know, you could add it here, quiet, or you know, you could add it in a more minimal way and make it rise and rise in volume until you come to this part where it comes full on. You know? This part though sounds like, I'm noticing this throughout the track. The track sounds as if it's a bed for something that is not there though. You know, this bum 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 bum, and the rest bum 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 bum. They sound like foundation for some melody to soar on top of it. So something like ba 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 ba. You know, if you added some French horn here on top of this, like, ba 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 ba. That would make much more sense. It would sound as if it's really evolving. Like we will start to see to hear the theme here, and it would justify this part and would justify the repetitions because we have new elements, you know. So one thing I wanted to do after watching this video is go on my YouTube channel and check out the tutorial I made called 4 ways to make cinematic arrangements more interesting. That tutorial is going to explain you many things that I want you to understand about this whole thing about, you know, making your tracks more interesting. So yeah, let's move on because we're already like close to 20 minutes, I think. So here too, the percussion sounds okay, but you could have layered it, you know. It's like you know, that's cool, but you could have added like, you know, something like that, some very light percussion sticks, you know, something like that in the background, a detail on top of what's already there. That, like, if you can think of ways to add details on as many instruments as possible, you're gonna have orchestrations and arrangements that sound insane. And every single detail missed is like 1 point minus to the quality of your arrangement, kind of. So in this case, I would have added some percussion, or something like that, I don't know. And also bigger trailer hits and the melody soaring on top of everything and stuff. Or you could just, you know, no, I would definitely add those parts here. So yeah, let's move on. Even here, like this is a big part. Like this is a big break before the big climax. So here doing the like downer would be like very effective, and that would work so much in a trailer. That's a missed chance. Like your track could even get a placement just because of this build up and a downer and then the climax. Like they could, when your track gets placements, that doesn't mean that it's gonna be used entirely. They might only use even just 5 seconds. Maybe they just like 5 seconds of the track and they think it fits to the trailer. If those 5 seconds are done, like the goal is to make every second of your track mind-blowing as mind-blowing as possible, because if you don't, then you're gonna waste lots of chances. Like this part here, like if you added the downer and you added the bigger risers and you added the sticks and you added that ba 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 melody, ba, ba, and I don't know, you had brass crescendos here, and then you have the whoosh bangs and the down, it's like, it's gonna sound insane. And if you add like here before this, you add some percussion, percussion fills, you know. So you have the na na na, you know, that is gonna be way more insane than this. you know? So, you know, really be crazy. Like you have to be crazy. And because that's what shocks people, you know, crazy arrangements. They still need to make sense. And this arrangement makes sense. That's the great thing about this. You nailed the structure, but this is not this is not a finished track. This is the skeleton. You need to add details. So if you add details here, this track itself is gonna be able to get placements already, you know. But like this, I don't really feel like you have lots of chances. You have them because the tracks make sense, but there's lots of tracks out there that have those details that are, you know, crazy, literally crazy. So you do need to stand up to them, kind of, you know. It's the trend of music is like a race between who's the craziest, sort of. Like when with dubstep, you know, dubstep started to become popular. Producers started to race themselves race against each other, trying to write the loudest, most insane dubstep drops. So trend of music is sort of the same. Now composers are challenging themselves to write the most insane sounding music. And you really need to make sure that you add the details to make sure that your track sounds like that, like crazy and everything. So that's why I'm so being so fixed on details. That's very important if you want to get placement. Now let's continue. This is good though. Like you added that sort of roll here. That's very good. Very, very good. But you could have also added like ba 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 ba, you know, some like percussion feels. Yeah, it's your choice. But good thing that you added this here, although I would have done everything else that I mentioned before. So yeah, this is the climax. Let's listen to it. So you have this melody now. I think that's what it does in the second part. Cool. You could have added it here in a subtle way, you know. Here you're playing it with the violins, etc. Like violins on strings, sorry. So it's on a higher octave. You could have played it here on a lower octave. You know, if you want to make your melodies stand out in a track, a cool thing to do is to use them often, but use them on different octave levels. So here you could have used the you know, something like that, but on our lower octaves. So maybe on cellos and, you know, French horn, but low. And in here, you repeat that on a higher octave with violins. So you could have taken this and used it before. So one thing you could do. Wait, let me continue. So that I appreciated this, like the bam 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 bam. That's very, very good of you to do, because you have a repetition. So having that is like, it really like keeps the energy flowing, kind of. So that's something good to do. But you could have done this throughout this pattern. So this pattern is like something like that, right? But that's for a very long time. So one thing you could do here, you have the melody that does a statement that is like ba 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 ba, and then it rests, like, right? So in that rest, you could do two things. Maybe you can add a counter melody, which is something I would do in this second part. Another thing you can do is to play with the percussion. So the percussion is like pa 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 pa, because it's accompanying the melody. So it's kind of steady. I get that. It's cool that it's not super crazy. But in the parts where the melody rests, so you know, in that part, you could take the percussion and do something crazy, like pa 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 pa. You know, so in the parts where the melody rests, you have the percussion that's pa 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 pa. You know, so pa 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 pa, you know, something like that. And that would be what they call sync points again, because if you do pa 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 pa, you know, that pa 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 part, which you could fill with trailer hits and whatever, can be used in a trailer, and they can edit the video following that rhythmic roadmap that you give to them, creating those pa 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 surprising hit points, you know. And you see that a lot of times in trailers, when people if you go and see the trailers of movies, you're gonna see how the percussion in the trailer affects the video montage. You're gonna see lots of parallels. For example, there's now this trend of showing a guy getting punched at the same time as the trailer hit is like hitting. I saw that in like the Jason Bourne trailer maybe last year or something. If you go check out the Jason Bourne trailer, they made lots of trailers in Jason Bourne, but in every single one, there's this scene where Jason Bourne punches a guy, and that punch comes at the same time as the trailer hit comes in the trailer track, and it creates an incredible impact because it feels as if the punch created that impact, like that trailer impact. So even this pa-pam, 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 so that pa-pam could be easily synced to something else. So that's one great reason to do it, and it also makes this track, like this part of the track, sound more interesting because you kind of have that call and response between the melody and the rests. While the melody rests, it's like the energy gets lost a little bit, right? So if you said do the trailer, like the percussion fills on every single melody rest, then you don't give the listeners the time to really get chillaxed. You keep the tension high. That's what you want to do with trailer music. So definitely consider adding a pa 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 pam every time the melody is resting or something. Similar to what you did in the here. And also make sure to add trailer hits, because I'm hearing percussion now, but I'm not hearing trailer hits at all, and that's not very good. Again, trailer music should sound like trailer hits with music in the background, sort of. That's like swearing, musical, but that's how it's done, pretty much. For all I know, for when I compose trailer music, that's what I do, and I get the most success when I use trailer effects without shame. So do that. Now let's continue. So this again is a copy-paste repetition. That's not very good. It's good that you added like choir as a layer, but I would have added choir in a different way. So, the problem is that you're doing like this, you're playing the same rhythm with all instruments now. Like the melody, like not the same rhythm, but we have the same rhythms going throughout, the piano and strings are playing the ba 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 ever since the beginning, and the melody is like ba 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 everything here, and in this part it's like 20 seconds, and after 20 seconds you keep doing the same thing. And even if you now add that layer of choir, like playing the ba 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 on a higher octave, it's okay, but it's still the same rhythm, still like same concept. So it's good to add that, but I would have added something else. So what I would have done, I would have added some choir marcato, something, playing chords or something like something like that. Forgive my bad singing, but here something like that with good choir, not with my singing, but that would have sounded powerful because you would have marcatos playing in a different rhythm compared to anything else. Would have made the track sound fuller. And also you could layer the percussion with sticks and stuff like that, as I mentioned before. And you could also do the white noise thing, but mostly I would just make the melody more powerful, because I think like the melody that didn't really impress me as much. Like you could probably add French horn. Because it doesn't really sound as powerful as it should be. The rest is the bed of the melody, but the bed itself sounds louder than the melody. So I do recommend you to layer the melody. And as for layering, I'm not going to explain you how to do it here, but there's a tutorial of mine on my channel called how to create huge cinematic impacts with layering. Now, that tutorial explains layering using cinematic impacts as an example, but that knowledge can be applied to any single sound. So check out that tutorial and learn the layering technique explained there, and use it to layer the melody here in such a way that it stands out compared to its bed. And in here I would add some marcato choir. I would also add, let me check again. I would add a counter melody. So other than in this part, if you follow my advice, as I mentioned before, you would have the pa 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 that trader sings once in a while. And other than those, like if you add them from here, they're gonna sound great. But if you replicate them here again, they're gonna sound great still, but also kind of sound old. So in this part, I would add counter melodies. So ba 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 ba. So add make that those rests, add counter melodies to them. I would do that personally, and then you maybe can make them come together. I made a tutorial about melodies and counter melodies called "How to Write Great Melodies and Counter Melodies by Ear." It's like 30 minutes long. Go check that one out too if you want to learn about how to write good counter melodies and melodies. But I would add counter melodies here, and yeah. And in this final bit, I would add a riser from here to here. Really noticeable riser from here to here. And maybe make this a bit more intense with the percussion because we heard it before. So yeah, but yeah, add the powerful riser, add counter melodies in this second repetition. Make sure to add that pa 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 thing, trader syncs here I mentioned before. Or you could do the opposite. You add the counter melody from here and you add the trader syncs from here onwards. And a cool thing you can do is if you add the trader syncs from here, like the pa 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 from here. In this part, you could make them more intense by, other than having pa-pa-pa-pa-pam percussion, you could layer, some short strings or short brass, short choir, playing layered along with those percussive hits, So, something like that, I don't know. That would be so crazy though. So I would definitely recommend you to do that. And yeah, let's see how this ends. Yeah, this sounds okay, but this is a very common mistake I see people doing it's 9 times out of 10 I see people doing this. They have the whole orchestration, like the full orchestra, and then in the stinger, which is supposed to be the loudest, most insane, more powerful, most tonically impressive part, they remove the orchestra. I'm not sure why you guys do this, honestly. That's like shooting yourself in the foot, because this part is like the most likely part to get placements at all in this day and age. The stinger is one of the most important parts. It's where you're supposed to give it your all. So removing, like you had strings, you had choir, you had brass. Removing those from this part is not a very smart move. So I understand though that it can be very difficult to think of what to add here in terms of orchestration, because maybe what you have here is like the most intense thing that you can think of, and you cannot rewrite the same thing over and over because it's gonna sound boring and it may not match with the rhythm you have here. So what I would recommend you to do is to rely on scales. I'm not sure which key this track is in, but take that key and play that. You can take that key and play the scale, something like that. And what I would do actually is to have a string of ostinato like very repetitive string of ostinato that gets more intense. So you play that ostinato, maybe starting from cello, and then you add violas and violins, you're going higher. And other than doing that, I would add a volume automation on those strings so they get louder and louder. So you have the string ostinato as a foundation, and given that you add the violins after and you get higher and higher in terms of octaves, that is gonna make the tension increase already. Another thing you could do is with the choir, something like that. It keeps on rising, And it's okay if you do the whole scale, like if you play literally the scale of the key you're in. But the thing is, you need to do is to play that thing with short notes that keep increasing in volume, like so marcatos or spiccatos, and keep like the velocities increasing, and also keep the the tonality increasing, because tonality increase is what results into tension increase when the human ear listens to it, So if there's a choir of, you're like, what the hell is happening? Oh my God. And that exactly is exactly what we're looking for here. In a trailer stinger, that's what we're looking for. Tension increase in a very short burst. That's why stinger sound insane, because in a stinger, it's not like what counts is not the actual power you put in it, but what counts is the build up, the increase of power from the beginning of the stinger to the end. So one cool trick you can do is to, when you have a stinger, you do not know what to write because you feel like you've reached the peak of intensity in the final part of the climax. You can start the stinger with the same intensity you had in the beginning of the climax and end it with the same intensity, or even more if you can, than you had here. But the fact that it's gonna grow in intensity in like 5 seconds compared to 40 seconds is gonna make that tension increase so much more palpable. And it's gonna have it's gonna be super effective, like flamethrower on Bellsprout in Pokemon, So you can do that, and that's what I recommend. A cool thing you did is that you changed the percussive pattern. Like a pa-pam, the pa-pa-pam, the pa-pam. That sounds way more intense than pa-pa-pa-pa-pa-pa-pa, So that's good. But even here, I would have made this first. I would have added way more trailer effects, stuff like that. And indeed, I would have added those sync points. So pa-pam, pa-pa-pa-pa-pa-pam, pa-pam. That's like educated percussion. You need to be wild. So it's like pa-pam, pa-pa-pa-pa-pam, pa-pam, something like super crazy. And again, these are tips on details. That has nothing to do with music theory. You might have noticed I didn't mention any music theory notion at all. That's because in this case, you really like the structure, the chords, etc. They're all okay. They're kind of repetitive, but that's straight on music. It's not necessarily your fault. It's also good if you keep the same chord progression actually in trailer music. But you do need to make sure the production is so detailed that it blows people away. So that's the thing I would recommend you to do overall in your track. And in every single trailer track you write, especially the epic trailer tracks, it might be a bit different for emotional trailer tracks. But for, epic, sound design, or even hybrid, orchestral, those are rules that apply a lot. So that's what I would do here. And then, well, this part kind of works because it needs to be just simple, So, yeah, nothing to say about this part. But as for the rest of the track, keep in mind all the things I told you. And yeah, man, I hope this was useful. And I said a lot. I probably went over my, threshold of 20 minutes per track review, but I really wanted to give you a hand here, and this is like my element. I've been working in trailer music for years, so I kind of really felt like giving this advice, because these are things that took me personally lots of time to really internalize. So one thing I did once, and I only did it once, I did spend like 200 hours on a trailer track, wrote the skeleton like this one, and then I spent 200 hours adding all the details, synthesizing all the sounds, thinking of all the ways in which I could have added more. And that track ended up sounding like hell, maybe way too much. But it was a cool experiment, and it led me to really understand how to add details to many elements. And so yeah, another way in which you can add details is using articulations. Other than using sustains and staccatos, there's also marcatos, there is also tremolos, there is also clusters, there is also brass scoops, and all those things. Those extra articulations are what makes your orchestral tracks sound more. What are gonna make your orchestral track sound more detailed too. So yeah. Okay, so that is all I have for this feedback. Again, this was very full advice, so I do recommend you to go back and rewatch this video multiple times. Try to take note of whatever I said, and also check out the tutorials I mentioned. And yeah, that's it for this one, and I'll see you in the next one.